All right. Well, hi all and welcome. I am so excited to welcome you to Turning AI Promises into Action, the AI-powered SOC. Today's exciting webinar is sponsored by Intezer and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Jess Steinbach. I'm with Actual Tech Media, a future B2B company, and I am so happy that I get to be your moderator today because I am very excited to take this deep dive into AI and SecOps with all of you. Today, with the help of a thought-leading expert, we are going to explore the ongoing and evolving impact of AI on security. This is top of mind for all of us, I know, these days. And what we're going to do is actually try to separate the buzzword from the real world potential and possibilities. So with the help of our expert presenter, we're going to unpack the emergence of AI-powered SOC automation and how you can actually deliver those tangible, real world values to SOC teams just like yours. So this is a really exciting time, lots of conversation happening. How can you put that into action at your organization? We're going to get you some hot tips, tricks, trends, all the cool things that you need to be thinking about today. So lots coming your way. We've got a lot to cover, and I'm going to go through just a few housekeeping points to help you get the most out of your time here with us today. So kicking things off, I want to draw your attention over to the questions section. Now, we have an incredible expert here with us who is so excited to hear from you. He wants your thoughts, your ideas, all your feedback, your comments, all the things that you have rolling around in your head. So make sure that you're getting those questions in as we go through our session. And we're going to leave some time for an interactive Q&A at the end. So we absolutely want to hear from you as we go through our presentation. In fact, let's give it a little test run right now if you haven't already done so. I see you there, John. Hey, Gilbert. Hey, Donovan. We've got Robert and Ed. Whole awesome crew. What's up, Christian? Keep this. Ooh, from Bolivia. Cool, Christian. Hope you're having a nice day in Bolivia. All right. Well, I am definitely not in Bolivia. I'm way up in the freezing Northland here. So for all of you, give us your highs, give us your hellos, and let us know how you're doing today. Now, you can also use that window if you do have any technical issues. Knock on wood. Hopefully this doesn't come up. But what I want to remind you is that a browser refresh is going to clear out most of the usual tech gremlins. If those gremlins are really clinging on and the browser refresh has not worked for you, you can post in that questions window there, and our team will be there to help you out. We're with you throughout the day, so any questions you can post right in there. All right, now what you're going to do, we've started out in our questions console. We've had our nice interactive chat to say hello. Hello, Alex, welcome. All right, so we've got more of you trickling in. Keep those highs and hellos coming. Now what you're going to do is take one hop over to the handout section. Make sure you spend a little time with the handouts and resources because there are some great takeaways and things that you are going to want to dig into once we finish our conversation here today. We're just kicking things off, right? We're dipping our toe in the water, and then there's always more to learn. So you want to make sure you've got those handouts and resources saved for after we wrap. Now, it's not just cool content we're giving away today on the webinar. We also have a $250 Amazon gift card. Now that will go as a prize drawing at the end of our webinar, and you do need to be here in live attendance in order to qualify to win that prize, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. If you're not sure what those T's and C's are, no problem. We've got them listed for you back in that handy dandy handouts tab. So head on over to the handouts tab, click and scroll down, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Speaking of prizes, we also have a $50 Amazon gift card going to the best question asked. Now, here's the fun part. The best question asked, even if we do not get to your question in our live Q&A, which we're going to try to get to all the questions that we can, but let's say that we don't get to, you are still entered to win just by asking that question. So make sure you get your questions in. We are going to review all the questions asked after we wrap, and we will follow up with that best question gift card. So again, that's a $50 Amazon gift card just for asking the best question today. So get those questions in. You also get a gold star and A+ from me if you ask great questions. I know that's not as exciting as a $50 Amazon gift card, but you'll still get it anyways. All right, well, speaking of exciting, let's get our incredible speaker on out here with me because I am so excited to introduce you all to our expert guide as we go through our conversation today. And that is, of course, Shaul Holtzman, Director of Solutions Engineering at Intezer. Shaul, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm so excited to get into this conversation. I know you've got lots of info in store. We're going to do a little Q&A at the end. We got lots going on. So I'm going to step back and hand things on over to you. Shaul, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jess. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry for not being here with video. We had some technical difficulties, but you'll, I hope, enjoy my voice while we go through this interesting topic. Just a few words about myself before I dive in. As Jess said, my name is Shaul Holtzman. I've been working at Intezer for the past almost 7 years now, and I come from a background of incident response, malware analysis, forensics, so deep security, interesting stuff. And I'm working with security operation teams every day on making their lives easier through automation and AI and much more. So I'm going to share some of our insights in this webinar today and really try to explain how AI and automation can be leveraged today to actually automate a lot of the heavy lifting that is done in security operations today. So that is what I aim to achieve here. Just to talk about the structure of my talk, I'm going to describe the problem. I'm sure that you all are familiar with it. Too many alerts, not enough people or time. I'm going to explain the promise and reality of AI, generative AI, automation, what has been discovered over the past few years, what has been tried, what was successful and what was less successful. And of course, I want to share some practical advice and best practices that we've found with our customers over the past few years on how to adopt AI in the best way in order to achieve an autonomous SOC. So starting with the problem, and again, I know that this slide is self-explanatory, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. Over the past few years, we've seen an increase in the number of alerts, incidents, security cases that come into any security team in their day-to-day. That could be a small, medium, or huge company. They all saw that increase. The reason is that we have more security solutions today than we've ever had. There are different detection capabilities built into different platforms that we use. And with that, of course, come more detections, more alerts that need to be dealt with. We have new technologies that brings more attack surfaces that can be leveraged and exploited by attackers. And with that, of course, come more attackers, more adversaries, which just compounds the problem and the challenge of resource shortage. There are not many security personnel that are available to do the actual hands-on work of investigating all of these alerts. And honestly, that's very hard work to do. So people who do get into the SOC world, it's really hard to retain them and to have them stay in that job when the alerts just keep coming. And sometimes it feels like there's not much to do in order to reduce them, just apart from brute forcing it. And there's never going to be enough people in the world to handle that number of alerts. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of alerts every month. So some statistics, we see that a huge majority of security teams are overwhelmed with the volume of alerts. I think that's no surprise. Many organizations had breaches over the past few years, and that can be attributed to the gap either in skills of the tier one analysts that deal with the incoming alerts, or just with the sheer number of alerts where the attack can slip through, and we've seen that happen many times. In addition, due to these challenges, it's very hard for organizations to recruit and hire, and of course, retain talent in this world. Now, have been many attempts to solve this issue that makes complete sense. Some, of course, has been in the world of automation, which we'll talk about, but another main attempt has been outsourcing. And that means instead of having your own SOC in the organization, you outsource it to MSSP or MDR to do that for you. Unfortunately, that isn't a silver bullet. and I think that that can be expected because in the end, MDRs have the same challenges, and that's why also we work with them all the time in order to automate and help their work as well. In the end, you're moving the SOC from the internal organization to an external organization that will manage many companies' security and incoming alerts. And that just means that they'll have the same problems. That can translate into expensive contracts, of course, to make that profitable. But also, when you don't have enough people to deal with this, you'll still have surface level investigation. So, same challenge again, and an inconsistent service because sometimes you'll have one analyst that is more familiar with your environment or has more skills, and sometimes the other way around. So we've seen that outsourcing isn't the solution for the resource shortage problem. But again, the solution that we're going to talk about is relevant both for internal and external SOCs, because in the end, a SOC is a SOC, and automation and AI can help um, uh, alleviate these challenges in both contexts. So let's identify the specific challenge in the incident response or detection and response cycle, because it's not the entire process that's problematic. There is a specific bottleneck here. So we can separate, of course, in very high level, the detection response cycle into three stages. You have detection. That is, of course, the part where we have different security solutions that are monitoring the organization and generating security alerts. To be honest, that process is doing what it should, right? You have solutions monitoring the network, whether that's network traffic or incoming and outgoing and network connections. You have endpoint detection solutions like EDRs, XDRs. You have identity-based security solutions monitoring the identities, logins, of course, of the users. You have email-based security, of course, which is an extremely important part of securing the organization. All of those solutions are doing what they're designed to do. They're monitoring and generating alerts for any suspicious activity, behavior that is deemed worthy of alerting, of generating some kind of investigation. The problem is investigating all of those detections. On the one hand, we don't want too many detections, right? We don't want oversensitivity of the detection solutions. But if you go the other way of reducing the sensitivity, you're of course at risk of missing a detection, and that's the worst thing that can happen. So you need to deal with all of these alerts and investigate them. So let's skip investigation for just one moment. Once the investigation is done, let's say we identified a critical threat, we can respond today rather quickly. A lot of the actions related to response has been automated or at least partially automated. So you know that there's an infected host, you can isolate that host rather quickly. You can add different artifacts to a block list rather quickly today once you have that investigated. So going back here in the middle, the investigation itself is what has become the bottleneck in this entire flow. There are too many alerts, and going deeply into the investigation of each of those detections requires a huge amount of time and a lot of effort by analysts. And that's repetitive and difficult work that is frankly frustrating. And that's exactly where we're going to focus our efforts or our conversation today. There has been, of course, many promises and false promises in this regard. So automation is not something new. We've seen I would say, the peak of SOAR solutions coming in over the past decade or so. And that has been successful in automating a lot of manual tasks, like response actions, for example, or connecting between different solutions. But for some reason that we'll inquire here, we haven't seen that solve the investigation gap or that bottleneck that we talked about. Let's talk about some of the reasons for that. So the reasons for, and of course, these are the top reasons, and we can talk more about that always. The reasons for uh, classic automation solutions failing to automate the investigation process are the following. And again, there are more, but starting with a complex setup or implementation. Um, when we talk about automation today, there are a lot of connections that need to be made, and even if the integrations are in place, you need to build a flow that does what needs to be done, and is airtight and mimics what a human analyst would do in the investigation process. That's extremely complicated, and for an organization to build that for for themselves is a really a difficult task. So even if you have all the tools in place, building that process and logic is more than you can ask for. Then that comes into the maintenance challenge. Once you've built that out, and you can spend years doing that, you need to maintain that process. New attacks, new technologies, new detection solutions that come in, changes in the organizations. That's something that you need a dedicated team or organization to maintain. That just doesn't scale. Lastly, even when you have all that process set up, you need to have extremely dedicated and accurate capabilities and engines that are able to take all that information into account when making a decision. It's very difficult to discern which alert requires immediate response, while what can be left for tomorrow or what can be, closed as a false positive. That's extremely difficult to identify in a fully automated flow. And these flows usually still require um, human decision making in order to take that next step. So, because of these main reasons, we've seen these solutions and automation not really add up to the ideal. Now, over the past a year or two, AI has, of course, exploded into our lives, starting with ChatGPT and different image and video generation tools, which have just been incredible in so many ways. And it really opens up so many new possibilities. And it's not a coincidence that we see so many new startups and companies come out with new promises. And it's interesting to see how that will change what we've seen before. And here are some reasons why there is a chance today to make a difference and actually find a solution, and establish it in the security operations world. First, after all these years of automation integration solutions, we have very mature tools with API capabilities, with existing integrations, case management solutions that are all ready for the next level of automation. In addition, of course, the place we are with now with AI is a completely different world. From a year or two ago, we're really living in the future with new LLMs and generative AI technologies. So it's just a matter of where that could be utilized, and we're going to talk about that right now. In addition, we know where AI can succeed and help us in which use cases, and where we need to find other solutions in order to achieve our goal. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. Because I know that you know AI isn't good at everything. For example, and I think this is a known meme. Um, when some early version of AI was asked to generate a picture of migrating salmon, we got the salmon fillet instead. So the short answer here is we need to know where to utilize AI, generative AI, in order to help us to achieve our goal and not to over rely on AI. It truly is not a solution for everything. And there are some things that I don't expect, at least, AI being able to help us with in the next few years. So, what does AI, the Gen AI specifically, good at, and what is it bad at? So, starting with the good, and I'm sure that all of you can um, relate to this because we all, I think, use AI in our day to day now. I use ChatGPT all the time to help me with things that would take me just so much longer to do on my own. So, starting with analyzing textual artifacts, um, as you know, you can uh, create and communicate with AI using text and have it analyze text in an extremely efficient way. And this is very useful talking about security with analyzing textual artifacts. That can be a process information when we're talking about host-based alerts and logs. That could be command lines or scripts. Thinking about a script like PowerShell or Python or anything else, AI is able to very quickly take in all of this data and tell me what the script is doing or what it's trying to do and help me use that in my decision making process. So anything related to text in the context of a security alert, again, that could be even the text of an email that I want to analyze, is extremely useful when utilizing leveraging generative AI. So those artifacts, scripts, or plain text code in source code, that could be extremely useful as well. Now, you can also take already processed information and generate rules or queries for additional research or investigation or hunting. That's also extremely useful, and we see that being utilized today in different chatbots and chat or AI assistants in different solutions. There are also, and again, mostly in text-based evidence, there are things that AI would notice when a human wouldn't necessarily notice. And I can give some examples that I truly see every day. Think about a phishing email that is sent out, and the name of the sender or the domain of the sender it looks exactly like the legitimate sender domain, but while you can't see it with your human eye, they replaced the capitalized I with a lowercase l, for example. That's something that's really hard to notice, or sometimes impossible, depending on the font, right? But AI sees a different character there. They know that it's not the right domain. So that's just one example where AI can find these evasion tactics. And lastly, taking a lot of information and generating a report or a summary, that's also something that AI is really good at. Some things that AI is not good at, and we can't use it today for. First, critical thinking. AI is gullible by design, so it's quite easy to trick in certain cases, and you can't um, rely on AI when you're being tricked in different regards. Um, Now, something very important that AI is also not good at is actively collecting and fetching data and evidence. So AI can ingest data and analyze it, but actively collecting evidence, whether that's through API or other means, is not something that can be done through just generative AI. You need a dedicated mechanism to do that. In addition, when you have non-text-based artifacts, that could be a link or a network artifact that actually leads to a website and generates communication. That could be a file which is not text-based, like a binary file, for example, or a piece of software. That's not something that AI has any means of analyzing today. In addition, contacting or taking action like messaging the end user and validating their suspicious activity or responding to an alert. That's not something AI can do. They might be able to help us generate text, right, or a message, but they can't then send that or take that operative action. Lastly, of course, any deep forensic analysis like memory forensics, reverse engineering, binary analysis, that's not something that AI has the ability to do. It requires dedicated solutions and, of course, dedicated analysts with that expertise. So how do we actually take what AI is good at and what it's not that good at and find the solution? And what are other challenges that are blocking us from utilizing AI properly? The one important challenge of that might prevent the end user or some organization from utilizing generative AI is privacy. A lot of the available solutions today are public, so you need to have a dedicated tenant and train it and design what it should do. There is no, of course, magic prompt or input that will just solve security operations. You can't just ask it to do so. You need to design very carefully how they should ingest the data and what they should look at, what they need to take into account. And that also entails a lot of trial and error that would require fine tuning and design and changes that also will take a lot of time, data, and expertise. All of that also can add up to very high costs because in the end, if we're talking about an enterprise solution, analyzing a lot of data like that is very expensive. So what we can understand so far is that in order to properly automate SOC in the real world, we need to have a combination of generative AI along with deterministic analysis methods. And I'll explain and show some examples right now of what I mean by that. But we need to combine what AI is really good at and find solutions to do what it can't do, and then combine the two in order to provide the best solution. And here's an example of a design of such a solution. We're starting with the detection side, okay? Remember, we have detection, investigation, and response. So alerts will come from different sources. That could be endpoint, network, email, identity, all of that. Now, we need to have some sort of method of receiving those alerts and extracting evidence. That's not something that AI can help us with, right? We need dedicated integrations. We need additional actions to be taken, connecting through API, fetching data. Again, not something AI can really help us with. Now, in the investigation stage, we need to separate out textual-based evidence, again, like command lines, scripts, text, and using AI to analyze that and separate out what AI can't help us with. For example, taking a file and running it in a sandbox. You need a dedicated infrastructure and process to do that. Analyzing or checking the reputation of an IP. You need a dedicated service that can do that. You want to analyze the behavior when you browse to a certain website. You need a dedicated platform that can do that. Now, taking all of the insights from different analysis engines and AI engines, you need to correlate this information. So taking all of the results into account and correlating them into a unified decision. This is actually something that AI can be extremely useful in, of course, when it's designed properly. And then, in the end, providing a verdict for the investigation, priority, all of that. That also can be, AI can be helpful in that. But again, we need specific results and evidence from other engines to help us. So combining in the decision-making stage, the alert data with the analysis of different pieces of evidence, we need in the end to determine whether a given alert is a false positive or true positive, provide classification and priority, and escalate only the serious incidents, only what is determined as a true positive urgent case. In the decision-making stage, again, AI can be useful, making sense out of all that data. Again, being subject to accurate analysis using the relevant engines where AI is simply not applicable. Lastly, on the response side, there's not much we can do with generative AI today. For example, if we want to close a false positive, we need the dedicated integration to do that. If we want to conduct or add a rule or block certain IOCs, we need a dedicated engine to do that. Now, where AI can be useful in this case is, for example, generating hunting queries to find additional related cases. So we need to utilize AI with the right data and trigger those queries. And lastly, generating reports, providing recommendations. With the right data, AI can also be useful there. So to summarize this flow, as you can see, we need deterministic engines and solutions that can actually provide us with the critical results where that is necessary. And AI can be an excellent additional tool and an overarching method to make sense out of a lot of data. Now, that was just a general, outline of such a process. And of course, there are many different startups and entrepreneurs now trying to make that happen. So we've seen a lot of that happening. Where can that go wrong? Because that could be implemented in so many different ways. First, these kinds of implementations can be extremely complex. For example, if the solution that you're going with requires the deployment of an additional agent across the organization, that can really complicate stuff for an organization and delay the implementation process. Sometimes that implementation or deployment will require many changes to be done or to be made in the existing workflow that you have. For example, switching out your case management process and starting to use a different pane of glass for your entire security operations flow. That can really disrupt your existing processes and can, in the end, cause a lot of harm. In addition, AI, as mentioned, is extremely useful in certain cases, and it shouldn't be over relied upon. It needs to be used where it's beneficial. And there will be a lot of untested technologies that do rely too much on AI without actually doing the analysis that AI can't do. And lastly, talking about the actual integration landscape. When we're talking about automation and AI, we have to talk about integrations. You need to integrate with detection platforms to get data in the right way, of course. And you need to be able to also collect more information proactively and respond properly all that through integrations. So you need to have broad and wide integrations with a huge suite of solutions, right? Detection solutions, automation platforms, case management systems, and you also have to have deep integrations that allow you to leverage fully the solutions that you have. So I'll take this time now, after explaining these concepts and processes and important insights of automating security operations, to share how we at Intezer have done it over the past few years and what we do today with our customers to automate their security operations. And this is the typical architecture that we take, and I'll explain why. So on the left here, you have the alert sources that most of our customers have. That starts usually with endpoint security, EDR, XDR, where we are able to connect to directly through dedicated integration. In addition, any phishing related detection or report, user report that is also a huge alert source that we see in the field today. In addition, of course, there are many other detection platforms and logs that come in through SIEM. And we usually ingest all of those additional detections through SIEM directly. That could be endpoint logs, network-based detections, identity security detections, cloud, etc. Why do we do that like that? Like, this is of course based on what we found to be most effective. The endpoint, the host itself in the organization is a pivotal point where we have a very strong integration with. And the reason is that you can have detections that come directly from the endpoint, but almost all other detection types also have some effect on the endpoint. When a user logs in and you get an impossible travel alert, for example, you're talking about them logging in to their endpoint, right? To their host, to their laptop. When you have a network-based detection, usually we're talking about traffic coming or going from a certain endpoint. When a user opens a phishing email and clicks a link, they're doing it on their laptop. So when we have a strong enough connection on the endpoint, we have the ability to collect evidence, to achieve response when needed, and to maintain the security in the best way possible. So that's how we ingest the alerts. Now, when we receive the alerts, we conduct the analysis, and I'll explain what happens there in a minute. And based on the result and the decision making, we need to be able to send the notification and connect back to our customers' flows. Our customers, in the end, are the SOC teams, and they need to get the alert when needed, the most important alerts, of course, with the highest priority, where they work in their day-to-day. And that can be their case management system, that can sometimes be email. They will sometimes have their SOAR where they want to get all the alerts and also conduct response automation. Intezer can also automate the response, like disabling a user, isolating a machine, blocking an email sender, all of that based on that response. The goal here for us is not to replace or disrupt the entire process and making the users change completely the way they work. We want them to keep the solutions that they're using and just have AI and automation help them with the prioritization of the alerts, of course, by leveraging deep deterministic engines with AI and automation that drive this flow at scale. Now, what happens in that investigation stage? So what does the solution do in order to make those decisions as fast as possible? So just to review what manual alert triage looks like and what Intezer does today, on the left we can see a typical process for analysts. And I'm sure that the practitioners here in the audience can relate. The alerts will come directly to the security team. That could be in a SIM or in a ticketing system. When the alert fires and reaches the team, of course, the top priority alerts will be prioritized. And for each one, the analyst will need to review and collect all available evidence from the alert. Sometimes not all the evidence will be included in the alert, so additional actions need to be made in order to collect more evidence. That could be taking a memory dump, even though no one has time for that, honestly. That could be collecting additional logs. That could be contacting the end user. And taking all of those evidence, they need to be investigated one by one and establishing the connection between them. So taking the files, the network artifact, the logs, and analyzing each one, correlating and determining whether together they constitute an actual threat. Then, what's the risk? Is it a true positive? Does it require immediate attention and response? Do I need to then escalate this to the next tier? Or is this a false positive that I can just close out? Or maybe I can take care of it in my offline shift tomorrow. Now, this entails also formulating a response strategy, deciding what the response should be. And then lastly, you need to execute the response strategy. That might happen in another tier, but response needs to happen, remediation as well, in order to close out the alert. Now, taking all of that, what can be done automatically? What do we do today? So on the right, you can see that in an Intezer implementation, the alert doesn't reach the security team directly. First, it goes through automated triage. That includes exactly what the analyst does in that stage. So we mimic what the analyst would do, all of these manual tasks, in order, of course, to help them focus on what's important and what requires actual response. So Intezer receives the alerts. It starts with collecting additional evidence and extracting them either from the alert or from other sources where necessary. Then, using dedicated engines and tools, analyzing each piece and each piece of evidence in order to identify the potential threat. Then, taking all of that information into account, determining the threat risk. Of course, AI is helpful here, both in analyzing certain pieces of evidence and making that overall decision regarding the risk based on those results. And of course, providing a response strategy. What is the best response for each alert? That process takes about 2 minutes for each alert, and then only the cases that require immediate attention are escalated to the security team. So out of all of the alerts that come in through this funnel, we typically see around 4% of alerts that actually require immediate attention and response by the team. And you can ask any SOC analyst, that is, adds up to what they see in their manual work. Like over 90% doesn't need to be addressed or immediately addressed. It just takes so much time to find that 3% of alerts. Then, using that data, the team can execute the response strategy. What's so important? Actually responding, blocking, isolating, remediating the organization, cleaning it up, making sure that the attack doesn't happen again. That's where the time needs to be spent. And by the way, a lot of that can be automated as well. So just to summarize and explain what we see our customers experiencing in their day-to-day. First, all of the alerts are investigated. That's, of course, not obvious. In a typical SOC situation, only a very small portion of alerts can actually be investigated. We're talking here about investigating even low or informational alerts in order to verify that nothing is missed. The results come very fast, along with the summary, root cause analysis, next steps, and response can also be automated many of the times. We see around 2 minutes average investigation time, around 4% of the alerts, and of course, very high accuracy. Now, I don't want to keep it just slides, so I'll go through a few examples from Integer, specifically from our solution and from some of our customers. So I'll share my screen now, and I'll appreciate it.
I'll
Just
give
if
you
you
a
can
check,
tell
show 'em.
me. Great.
Yes, we gotcha. Looks great.
Awesome. So what you see here is the Integer main dashboard, and this shows you some of those details that I mentioned before. So we can see here that we're getting a lot of alerts in from many devices, overall around 2 minutes investigation time on average for each, and less than 4% are being escalated. This is a number that is actually manageable, right? I don't need to investigate now 1,000 alerts. I can investigate a few dozen with a team, of course. Now, below you can see where we're currently connected. So we're getting alerts from endpoint, from phishing, from other sources. And in order to connect a source, we have dedicated integrations, of course. Again, something that you need dedicated work to get going, and it can't be just done with AI. So once we have the credentials and the connection, we start getting the alerts and going through that flow. I want to show some examples of how automatic triage happens. I'll show an example of a phishing email that is investigated in just under a minute, and also a case coming from EDR. Starting with this. So we have here an email that was reported as potentially malicious by an end user. The analyst will need, right, to get this email and go through the analysis in order to decide whether this was real phishing or perhaps not. Maybe it's just spam. What would an analyst do in this case? They would review the headers of the email, right? Who sent this to who, when, from where. They would look at the text of the email itself, like what does it say? What does it ask for? Does it ask for anything sensitive? They would look at all of the links that are contained in the email and go through the analysis for that. And of course, extract all of the attachments if there are any and analyze them. This is exactly what we do automatically at Integer. So we can see here on the right some information from the original email, whatever we can share here. And here we can see some detection rules that identified different techniques, like impersonation of DocuSign, a QR code that is found here. So that's just some low-hanging fruit that we can identify rather quickly. Furthermore, we extract evidence. We have a PDF attachment here that is found to be malicious based on the content, based on the execution. We also found inside the PDF attachment a QR code, and that's extremely common today with phishing using QR code. We extract the QR code link automatically and we run through analysis. Again, we need to identify the behavior of the link, right? Where does it redirect? Where does it lead us to? We need to see the reputation of that link. A lot of things that we need to do active investigation on. So this link is found to be malicious. We also see another suspicious link that was embedded inside the email, while there are other links, URLs, domains that are completely legitimate, and that's expected. Lastly, here, we can also see where AI comes into this for the first time. We have to also read the email, right? We need to know what it's asking you to do. And this is where AI is extremely useful, better than we can even expect in analyzing the text here. So we can see that it says the email claims to be from a legitimate business. It regards a payroll document, requests recipient to open a document. We have logos, we have links that point to a suspicious URL. We have urgent actions that are required. So based on that information, AI tells us this is likely malicious. And you can see how it looks like here. It looks legitimate. So taking all of these pieces into account, we also utilize AI in order to get the final result. So you can see, why did we classify this as a threat? So based on the presence of malicious files, URLs, PDF, QR code, and the text, these findings were corroborated, resulting in a confirmed threat. So AI here helps us as the glue to take all of these pieces of information together to make a decision, and this would be then escalated to the security team. And one last example here, looking at the other side of the spectrum, right? We have a CrowdStrike endpoint protection detection coming from the EDR again. And we have here a detection for suspicious behavior. Okay, on the right, we can see some information about the original alert. We can see some evidence here, like processes, command lines. And we also have AI explain to us why was this alert generated in the first place. So we see some attempt to modify files, possibly tamper with the sensor configuration. Sounds suspicious. So again, we need to collect the evidence. So we collect here two files, both after deep analysis, deemed to be legitimate files. In addition, we also look at the process structure, the command lines, anything textual, as I mentioned before, utilizing AI. And AI here corroborates and verifies that this is likely a false positive based on all of this information. So again, taking the evidence and the analysis into account, we have a summary here that tells us, even though the alert was triggered in high severity, by the way, based on the information here, this leads us to determine that this is a false positive, and this alert can be closed without the team even looking at it. So from a high severity to a non-existent, okay? So we see, again, to summarize this, that we need to have a means to receive the alert, to extract evidence, to call back to the detection source and get more data, to conduct the analysis. And part of that, a significant part, can be achieved or improved and upgraded using modern AI techniques. And that really is what can allow us to take it to the next level. So I'll just stop sharing the screen here, and looking forward to hear if there are any comments or questions about what we talked about.
We have a lot of questions coming in, Joel. That was such a great presentation and really exciting to see that demo in action. Thank you so much for walking us through that. We're a little short on time, but I want to try to sneak in just a few questions. And then what we're going to do is all the questions that we got in, we're going to make sure get sent to your team, Joel, so you'll be able to respond to everybody that got a question in. I got to tell you, the competition for best question asked today is fierce. We've got some great questions. Shaul, you ready to go through maybe a lightning round with one or two questions?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, we did get a couple of questions coming in from folks that are maybe needing to make an argument to a decision maker in their organization, and kind of wondering maybe if you could give us some key uniques or a key argument that you would give to somebody that is bringing Intezer to a member of their team and might have, say, budget objections or resource objections. How would you counterbalance that?
It's all a matter of measurements, right? ROI, like how much time can Intezer or any other automation solution save? What's the alternative? That's what I would ask. We need to measure how much time is spent on investigating each alert, how many alerts come in a day, how many analysts do you have? And that's something we have calculators for.
Perfect. Okay, so you have help for someone that needs to make that argument. How would you differentiate if we have a question here saying this sounds a lot like a SOAR? How are you differentiating integer services from a SOAR?
That's a great question. So imagine, let's say that you want to buy a car, right? One way is you can get into a garage with the best tools, best parts, and go ahead and assemble that car. That's the source solution, and you can get an amazing car out of it, of course, with a lot of toil, right? Or you can go into a dealership and buy the best car and go ahead and drive it. And that's a more advanced automation solution that is built in out of the box, like Intezer.
I like that. I like that analogy. Anytime we can get into cars, that's a great thing. No, I like that a lot, Joel, and I think that's an important distinction there. Um, do you think? And I'm just scanning through because we're getting new questions in every second here, and I want to try to get to as many of them as we can. And you're doing a great job of knocking these off quickly. Can we talk a little bit about false positives? How often are you seeing those? What are you doing to avoid those?
So in any implementation, with Intezer, and I would assume with any other solution, there has to be some fine tuning, right? Because some activity might be deemed as legitimate in one organization and acceptable, and in another, it will be illegitimate and something that needs response. So usually when we start the implementation, we have some data to work with. We work with the team, we get their feedback, and of course, in the end, you have people reviewing that and updating our engines and intelligence accordingly in order to customize the results for our users. So going through that, we expect very high accuracy.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I was enjoying hearing from your wonderful guard dog that you have there. You gotta
Muted.
No, not at all. Hey, you know what? Dogs are always welcome on our webinars. Shoal, I think unfortunately we're gonna have to start to wrap it up here because we're running a little short on time. But what I want to ask you before you go, we've got a link up here on the screen for everyone, and that is clickable. So please do take a second and click on there. What that's going to do is take you over to the product tour. Shoal, in our handouts, we also have a link to your website as well as we've got an ebook. Which is actually a really interesting ebook on improving SOC efficiency in 2024, how you can transform security operations processes with AI. All three of these resources are linked in the handouts tab, and you've got the links on the screen there. Is there anything else that you would recommend, Shoal, as a next step for how to follow up with this webinar?
Sure. So if you relate to the challenges described, try to implement a solution. There are so many solutions out there, and if what I showed with Intezer today is relevant, just contact us. It's so easy to get connected and just see the value. And if that's something that helps, the decision really makes itself. So just let us know and contact us also if you have more questions.
Well, I love that. Shoal, I'm going to sneak in this one last question for you from Xavier here, making a play for the best question. This is a good one, Xavier. All right, Shoal, if you could be any superhero, what superhero would you be?
Spider-Man.
A good one.
Yeah, I guess. Why not?
I love it. Well, a perfect note to end on. Shoal, thank you so much for some really fascinating information, for taking us on that demo. What a wonderful, deep dive into Intezer, and I really appreciate all the information and insight you've given us today. I know that there's a lot of questions in the console here for you, Shoal, so we're going to get those to you and your team. But I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much, Jess.
All right, and to everyone out there that is getting in some great questions, love it. Sparkling, wonderful conversation happening in the questions tab today. And I want to say a special thank you to Shannon and the Intezer team for asking or for participating in the live chat and kind of getting some answers out to folks. For anyone that didn't get an answer, you will get your questions answered. So if you still have a question rolling around in your head and you would like to learn a little bit more, get that question in right now, and we will make sure it gets sent to the team and you will get those responses back. So keep keep the questions rolling. Again, visit the handouts tab. Make sure you've clicked on the links in the handouts tab. Make sure you click on the link that's up on the screen here and follow up with this conversation. There is so much more to learn and so much more to dig in and explore. So please do make sure that you have those handouts. All right, well, while you are all clicking on handouts and getting in your last questions, let's go ahead and give away our prize. We have a $250 Amazon gift card going to someone who is here, present, live, and a little bit lucky at the webinar today. And that special someone at our webinar is Bruce Faboda of Ohio. Bruce Faboda of Ohio, congratulations to you. As always, we will be in touch about claiming your prize after we wrap up our webinar, so stay tuned for that. All right, well, with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Intezer for making this webinar possible, especially to our wonderful speaker, Shul, for giving us so much to think about. A really, truly fascinating conversation. Love the demo. I love our lightning round Q&A. Got some really nice, fast, succinct answers in there. A lot of great info checking around today. So thank you on that note to all of you for joining, for asking some fabulous questions, for being such an interactive part of our conversation. We really and truly cannot have these webinars without all of you out there. So genuinely appreciate the time you've spent with us today. I hope that you're walking away feeling like you've learned something new and you're ready to keep these conversations rolling in your lives as you continue forward. And I hope that I'll get to see all of you at a webinar again soon. And until then, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful end to your day. Thanks all.